Welcome in, everybody. It's randomly selected, powered by the Silver Room. My name is Mario. Thank you so much for all your kind words and everything over the past year. We really appreciate it. We are going to end this year up with a bang today on the show from On the Block on WCIU TV, CW26 in Chicago, Mr. Brandon Pope. We talked to Brandon about how energy and energies growing up set a tone for his path, the optics and people and things of that nature. We also talk about how he made his way to Chicago. But before we do those things, shout out to Shaker Heights, Ohio, and my Aunt May Garrett and my family out in Shaker. We asked him about his origin story growing up in Shaker Heights.
You know, people got us messed up because they watched that Little Fires Everywhere on Hulu, which is based in Shaker Heights. You're like, oh, that's where you're from? I'm like, nah, I'm from a different Shaker Heights.
Right.
All right. The Shaker where you get shake down. That's what I know. Moved around a lot as a kid, though. Just mostly because my mom just was finding different jobs and opportunities. So we moved to Cincinnati. We moved back to Cleveland, moved to Dayton, Ohio. We had some time in Columbus, Ohio, a little short stint. So it's like people are like, what's your hometown? I just say Ohio because like I literally just moved all around the state.
Right.
I identify more with Cleveland. My dad was a Cleveland guy, but a lot of my family now Cincinnati. And then when I was in high school, we moved to the border of Ohio and Indiana, Richmond, Indiana. My grandpa was living there, and he was getting older. And my mom said, "We're not putting him in a home. We're going to go take care of him." Nice. So, you know, I was starting high school. I was really upset about this because I was used to big city life. Got me going to this small little town. But honestly, I think it did a lot for me. And I'm glad I got to spend those last moments with my grandpa there, you know, and I don't regret that at all. In high school, played a little football. I knew that I liked media. Me and my friends would like shoot music videos and little short films. We would like, you know, around that time, Lil Wayne was huge. Young Money was huge. So we did a Bedrock video. I got in trouble for it at school, got suspended. It's worth it. Nice. We had like red cups and everything. I realized at that point, okay, this video thing kind of cool. I had a teacher for my video TV class who basically was like, yeah, you're more of a behind the scenes guy. I don't really see you being an on-camera person, which, I mean, I didn't like him saying that because I believed in myself and said, no, I can definitely be on camera. He said I didn't have the personality. I'll never forget that. Meanwhile, I'm out here doing play-by-play for sports and winning awards in the state. Second place in the state for sports play-by-play. I'm winning awards for documentary filmmaking and stuff like that in high school. I decided I'm going to go to college. Ball State University is where I decided to go. Baller State, as we say. Got my little preferred walk-on football spot, but I knew my goal was bigger than football. I found out what I wanted to do was journalism. I grew up watching Stuart Scott on SportsCenter. Yeah. I thought to myself, hey, maybe I can be a SportsCenter guy. I was thinking sports. But then as you start to really, there comes a moment when you're growing up, you start to really think deeply about the issues in the world and the issues that affect you, especially as a black man. And, you know, seeing Barack Obama run for office kind of politically awakened me. And I started thinking more about issues broadly outside of just sports. So I'm like, okay, maybe what I need to do is focus on journalism overall, not just sports journalism. And I had some mentors be like, listen, not a lot of sports jobs out there. You're better off learning everything you can about journalism than honing in on sports. I did that, graduated from college after dealing with a lot of microaggressions at a PWI, but hey, that comes with the territory.
Right.
My first job was in South Bend, Indiana. Not far from here.
Not far from here at all.
Yeah, covering Notre Dame athletics.
There you go. Who was the Notre Dame guy there when you were there?
Brian Kelly was the coach.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a a-hole.
Whatever.
I have a lot of personal stories of Brian Kelly.
I want to know one of them. The whole thing with the teacher instructor telling you don't have much personality, won't be good on camera. Is that still something that you hear that in the back of your head?
Yeah, I'm a person who I don't let haters have the energy, or I don't give them the energy necessarily that they want in my mental space. But no, there's definitely like some bulletin board material. Anytime someone says I don't have something or I can't do something, that was a big one for me. It's like, oh, you're saying I don't when I know for a fact I'm better than the people you got doing this on camera stuff.
Yeah,
Okay, bet.
yeah.
Happened to me in college too. We had this thing. Man, this is toxic. They
I'm sorry.
they had these anonymous peer reviews where your
no.
classmates get to talk. And I was in this sports program called Sports Link, where we worked with ESPN, Fox Sports. Only black kid in there. And a lot of my peer reviews were like, "Oh, he's the flavor of the week. Oh, he walks the walk, but he don't talk, or he talks the talk but don't walk the walk. He's overrated."
That's abrasive.
Somebody said that, I think he's more of like, only got him this far, or is only like hyped up because he's like the successful black student.
What?
Yeah.
Whoa.
I took all that, and I look around now at those people. They were anonymous, but I know everybody in the class. I'm doing better than all of them.
Yeah.
So, it's not about racking up wins and losses. I just take note of things, and I put the head forward and shoulder down and push ahead.
You got to Chicago. How did the Chicago part happen? Yeah,
so my work in South Bend had me coming to Chicago a lot. Like I covered the Cubs when they won the World Series.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm an Indians fan,
I'm sorry.
Now Guardians fan. So
I'm sorry.
That was tough.
Man, that must be rough.
I never forget my news director calling me. I'm watching the World Series on my TV, and he's like,
that must have been terrible.
He's like, "Hey, I just want you to know, if the Cubs win tonight, I need you to go out to Chicago and, go." And I'm like, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah, I know you hate it, bro." I'm like, "Yeah," and sure enough,
I can only
they
imagine.
won. I packed up my car, drove right out there, got very lucky. Remember that Taco Bell across from Wrigley Field?
Absolutely.
Okay. I got very lucky. I got a parking spot right there.
Sweet.
ABC 7 security was right there. They helped me out.
Sweet.
I had the perfect spot, had the perfect location, no parking troubles. It was a breeze. But so what ended up happening was the station I worked for in South Bend, the company that owns them is based in Chicago.
Okay.
They own WCIU as well.
Okay.
They saw my stuff. They said, "Hey, we kind of like him. Let's have him come out, try some things out." Back then, they had a morning show called You and Me in the Morning.
Absolutely.
I came out. I would drive to Chicago. They put me in a hotel at that Crown Plaza in West Loop. And that when it was under construction, too. Really, really raggedy.
There's a lot of stories about
I bet. And I would
stories.
do, the morning show. I'd co-host for a show, and then maybe I'd come back, and I'd maybe do live shots at the White Sox field. And, I would do different things, and they never gave me any feedback. It was always just kind of like, all right, cool, thanks. And I never got it, so I'm kind of like, I went out here probably like 6 times. I came out here, and it just got to the point where I'm like, I had to start thinking about my next career moves. I had offers in Memphis, had offers in Dallas, I had offers in Atlanta. I'm like, I'd like to lock down something, but if Chicago calls, I'm coming to Chicago.
For sure.
So I finally put the pressure. I'm like, listen, y'all need to make a decision because my contract's up soon.
I'm about to do something.
And this Memphis thing, they was really putting up. Memphis was ready to hire me. They were like, what's taking so long? Let's go. Eventually, they finally came with the offer, and then that's how it happened. So I came to Chicago. It helped. I already knew Chicago. I had friends here in Chicago. I was in Chicago every weekend.
Yeah,
I was turning up all the time in Chicago. I would drive out here to Chicago. I was anchoring weekend mornings in South Bend, so I drive out here to Chicago, day party, turn up, maybe do a bar crawl in Wrigleyville or something,
right?
Or do Chance the Rapper had his coloring book day. Remember that?
Yeah,
came out here for that. And then drove back to South Bend, took a little hour nap on the couch at the station, and then anchored the morning show, 4 o'clock in the morning till 10 in the morning.
Wow. Look at you.
Sometimes hungover.
Kicking it.
Like you'd see me get more and more hungover as the hours went by.
Ooh, this is getting bad.
It'd go from good morning, Michiana, to, all right, good morning. It's 9:30. Let's check in with your weather and traffic.
Right. We talked to Brandon about his experience at the 2012 Summer Olympics in London. He covered the Redeem Team, son, Kobe. We also talk about the Block Club collaboration with CW26 and what he's learned about Chicago that he didn't know prior to the TV show. Here's more with Brandon Pope on Randomly Selected.
So we were based in Worcester.
Okay.
Worcester, England. And then the part of London everything was around was like, it really was all over the city, to be honest.
Yeah.
The Olympic campus was huge. Piccadilly Circus, all around there.
By the way, if anybody from London is listening, I realize London is the city.
Yes.
Don't come at me, bro.
It was great, man. I mean, just imagine, this is my first major media experience.
So that was your first big thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was in college at the time, and we're going out there, and I get to cover, my beats were USA volleyball,
Nice.
USA fencing,
Nice.
and USA basketball. Now, of course, I wanted basketball. That was the most coveted beat of everybody. We were all jockeying for beats, and I'm like, give me basketball. Give me basketball. I did not really think I'd be able to actually talk to any NBA players. Oh, but I did.
Yeah.
And what a time. Never forget, my professor hits me and a few others up and says, hey, I want y'all to wake up tomorrow at 4 o'clock in the morning. I got something we're gonna do. Be ready to work tomorrow. I'm gonna take y'all somewhere. He said, don't ask any questions. I'm like, all right. He said, just be ready to work. All right. He takes us out to the University of, I think, South London. They were doing shoot-arounds. Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, Kevin Durant,
It was
Kevin
that
Love,
team.
Russell Westbrook, James Harden. The Redeem team. At that point, were they Redeem at that point? I think that was 2008 were the Redeem or 2012. Anyway, Anthony Davis, his rookie year. And our job, go up to him and just ask them questions.
Wow.
Somebody be your camera person and just go ask them questions. Imagine how daunting that is. I was a junior in college.
Wow.
And I watched Kevin Durant. I grew up a LeBron James fan. I love Kobe Bryant.
Yeah.
I can just walk up to these people.
And they were open to talk?
They were all so cool and down to earth. The only person that wasn't, and Anthony Davis, me and him got into it a little bit.
Oh, really?
He broke a record playing Argentina. I had the stats. I knew I was right.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, you broke this record last night. He was like, oh, no, I broke that last week. I'm like, no, you didn't. You broke it last night. He's like, no, I broke it last week. And I'm like, nah, bro, you broke it against Argentina. It was like going back and forth. And I'm just like, all right, well, have a good one.
Oh, wow. Peace.
Yeah, like, everybody else was cool. Kobe Bryant, man, I got to tell this story.
Yeah.
So Kobe got probably the most media attention. The way these things work, I mean, ESPN's there, NBC's there, CNN's there. And they all, if it's free for all, they all just like huddle around a person until the PR person's like, all right, that's enough. Leave him alone. So Kobe, he got done with his practice shoot around. He sits down in his chair on the bench, and that signals, okay, he's ready to talk. And then the PR person waved. Mad dash of journalists. At this point, I mean, I'm like in the back. I try to jockey my way in there. I can't really get in. I managed to get like my hand in, reach my mic in there so I can at least get some audio. About, I'd say probably 5 minutes into it, Kobe notices that I'm like struggling. I'm also the only black person there at this time, at least in that huddle. And he's like, hey, young man, right here. And I'm just, and then you see them kind of clear out. And I'm like, V? He's like, yeah, man, what's your name? I'm like, hey, I'm Brandon. He's like, hey, what's up, man? I'm Kobe. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. And I'm just like, at this point, he's like, you got a question for me? And I'm like, yeah, I got a question. I just black out. I just black out. Nice. And honestly, I can't even really, I barely remember what I asked him. I know it didn't make any sense at all. And I'm just like, so Mr. Bryant, you're in London, and you're the Black Mamba, Kobe Bryant. And I'm just rambling in this long, elaborate question. He's just so nice, just nodding and everything. And whatever question I ended up asking, he was like very cool, but he's like, yeah, that's a good question. And he starts talking. He's like, did that answer the question? I'm like, yeah, it did. He's like, awesome. And then I was just like, it meant a lot. I mean, it may have not meant a lot to a lot of people. For me, it meant a lot that he took the time to see a young black kid who was struggling. And he said, hey, y'all, move out the way.
Yeah.
Let me give him an opportunity here to say something. That showed his character. And I think that just proves what kind of a person he is, right? Rest in peace to the Black Mamba, man.
Fact.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was an incredible experience. Just, from the journalistic thing, learning on the fly, the fast-paced environment, it's trial by fire, You have to really flip stuff really quickly, especially when you're covering an Olympic sport. You got to know media rules and guidelines, and then also learning a new city, navigating a new city. the cultural aspect of it all these cultures in one city, Brazilian women. Ooh, Lord have mercy. Got to stay focused.
I can imagine.
It was a great time, man.
I can imagine.
I'll leave it at that. I won't go into the stories.
Well,
the fencers. Me and the fencers had a lot of fun. I learned a lot about fencing.
That's why when you name volleyball, fencing, and basketball, like those are three decent Olympic sports.
There's a fencer, the first black silver medalist in fencing.
Olympics, that's right.
Daryl Homer.
Yeah.
Me and him are real tight.
Still?
We're still
nice.
Real tight because him and I are about the same age. And, you know, with the basketball people, you got to go through PR reps and you got to like politic to get access. For these people in the lesser sports, fencing and stuff, like you literally just reach out to them on Instagram. They'd be like, yeah. And that's what we did. I reached out to them like on Facebook or Twitter or something. And I was like, hey, want to do an interview? Yeah, sure. Let's be at this cafe. And that's what we did. And we stayed in touch. Wow. Every time I'm out in New York, we hang out. He's good people. And we've both seen each other kind of rise together. We bonded over our love for Kanye music.
Nice.
And you know, I'm happy to see him shine. So those connections you make at a time like that, seeing the hard work these kids go through to be an Olympic athlete, like you got kids that they're working from age of 15, 14 years old every day to be a great ping pong player. Like it's mind boggling the dedication it takes and the commitment. You
recently, well, I guess not so recently, started a collaboration with Block Club Chicago and WCIU, Channel 26, CW 26, because, you know, got to say it right. Started this collaboration on the block. You not being a native Chicagoan, being as in-depth about the stories that you guys do on that show, what have you learned about Chicago since you started doing that show that you didn't know already?
Oh, that's a really good question.
Hey, man.
That's a really good question. That's why you're on that side of it, right? And I'm on this side. You got the questions.
I might have a question.
I love it. Okay, I think I haven't really thought about this. Something I've learned, I enjoy learning more about different neighborhoods that I've never been to. I've been in Chicago about 7 years now, and I've been knowing Chicago and around Chicago and hanging around Chicago for longer.
Right.
So I feel like I know Chicago pretty well. But then you realize there's whole neighborhoods I've never even touched, never even kicked it in. Or maybe if I went there for like a quick story and didn't really get a chance to like take in the restaurants, the community vibe, the issues. Every community's got a story, and I think what I've loved is I'm able to learn. Like I've learned about Avondale. I used to kind of like write off Avondale. Love
Avondale's
Avondale.
very nice.
It's nice. It's a good neighborhood. Yeah. Pilsen. I've learned more about Pilsen. I just love that I'm learning more about neighborhoods. And I'm learning how passionate people are about their neighborhoods. I always kind of knew that, but like the neighborhoods I know people are passionate about are the ones that I hear about the most. You know, people from Inglewood love Inglewood. People from Hyde Park love Hyde Park. People that are from Pilsen, they got Pilsen pride and same for Humboldt Park. But what about Belmont Cragen, right? You know what? Like people there care too. What about Edgewater, right? Like places like that. I'm just learning so much about that, and that to me is the most fun part about it. And being able to just discover new places. I'm always into that.
We talked to Brandon about his role as head honcho at On the Block on CW26. We also asked him how his team elevates in situations where they're the voice of breaking news. Also, we asked Brandon his thoughts about how he's cultivating the new generation of Black and brown journalists. Here's more with Brandon Pope on Randomly Selected.
We are efficient, we are fast, but we're also accurate. That's what good breaking news is, always those three things, right? The speed part is the least important part of it all. And I think that's the part that gets misconstrued in breaking news and how people get in trouble is they want to be first with everything, which means they want to be fast with everything, which leads to people being wrong.
More times than
not, because they want to rush the information. Now, there are some entities and outlets out there like a TMZ who become first, who use methods to get first, and their information is reliable because they pay people. That's not quite ethical journalism, right? But for those of us who operate in the ethical journalism space, I'm always a person. I think about our role as journalists is to minimize harm. Do no harm is literally an ethos of journalism, and this is an industry that's done a lot of harm to a lot of people because they rush to say things, and it's as simple as like when we're covering a crime, like a murder or a shooting. Me as a journalist, I may actually know the identity of the person who was shot. But it's irresponsible for me to put that information out there before the family is notified, before the family has had a chance to process the information. It's really terrible. Just imagine a family finding out on the news that their loved one is dead. That should never be that way.
Right.
But when people prioritize speed, that's often what happens. So I think when we do breaking news right, it gives the team confidence. But ultimately, it gives us a better sense of purpose for what we're doing. And what we're doing is being stewards of our community. That's what good journalism always is being about the people.
Do you think about how you're going to help cultivate this next generation of journalists, particularly Black journalists and Latino journalists and women journalists, and how important that is in this cycle of news where we don't know if it's real or not? We have to do a lot more investigating to see if something is true or not. Sources important, things like that. Is that something you think about?
Absolutely. Almost every day.
Yeah.
I think I wake up every day thinking about the next generation. I'm passionate about mentorship. I've got lots of young people in this industry or who want to be in this industry who I mentor and try to shepherd and steer them in the right direction. Because the truth of the matter is it's a tough industry to get into.
Yeah.
And the reason why journalism, I think, is at a crossroads right now is because it's become an industry of the privileged. What I mean by that is the industry itself does not pay a lot of money, starting out at least. You can make money later on, but starting out, the pay is rough and the wages are going down and down, like all industries, but journalism especially. So you're paying all this money to go to college. You're in student debt. Now you got a first job out of college that only pays you $25,000 a year.
Buddy.
Now, now the privileged can have mommy and daddy help them out for that first job and help them out with rent. A lot of us from, marginalized communities don't have that luxury. I sure didn't. And a lot of us can't struggle for 2 or 3 years. I struggled in South Bend. I couldn't afford to heat my place. I had weeks where I had 25 cents in my bank account. My mom did not have the money to be able to say, well, so I had to make it work.
Yeah.
But I also was committed to making it work, and I found a way and budgeted and stuff like that. And I asked people for money. I hate doing it, but I had some good friends in the community, pastors, stuff like that would lend me $100 here or there. I appreciate that. Not everyone has that, and they shouldn't have to have that. So you have these opportunity gaps that get created for Black and brown kids where they're basically barriers to entry. So you see less of us in the industry because it's become the privileged can thrive. Mommy and daddy can help them out through that rough period. They can go to the New York Times. They can do all that because they could afford to. And it should never be the case. The people we need in journalism most are people who come from poor backgrounds, people who come from diverse communities, because that reflects the stories that are being told, right? That perspectives matter. You're supposed to be unbiased as a journalist, right? But that's BS. Everybody's got bias. Their bias is based off their life experience. If you are a white person in America and you're covering race in America, right away there's a problem. Because you have not had the experience. If you have a white person covering race in America, you need to make sure you have a Black person covering that, a Latino person covering that. And if we're saying we don't have enough of those people, that is a huge issue. So I'm all about, and that NABJ is all about, developing a pipeline.
Yeah.
And developing that next generation, training that next generation and saying, hey, we got you. And of course, the funding as well. We raise money. Scholarships, trying to fund kids because they're the ones that often have the most trouble trying to get through. We don't want finances to be a barrier to access anymore for journalism because it impacts the industry overall, and therefore our communities, our people, how our stories get told, and that's not fair.
You're the head of the Chicago chapter of the National Association of Black Journalists, and that organization has been a strongly, I'm sounding like Donald Trump. Sorry. That organization.
Never him.
Oh, God, just don't get me started.
He messed up everything for me. 'Cause I start saying things like bigly on
Yeah,
accident.
really?
Or I'll be reading the Bible. I'll say 2 Corinthians.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
I can't get it out of my head.
He's just don't get me started.
Yeah.
That organization has gone a very long way to assure that there's a door open, not kind of open either, wide open for Black and Latino journalists to go through, and young people to be able to reach their goal if that's something that they're interested in. What's your vision for NABJ?
My vision for NABJ on a local level for Chicago is for it to be inclusive, for it to be a place for all media professionals to have a home, to be a resource for them for career aspects, but also to be a place where it's family. So a refuge in a sense. I want us to be able to have good professional development, but also be able to have great social spaces and places to network and, build those tribes. Because honestly, that's how we as a people thrive, is our tribes, right? And the people that carry us along. You develop those through places like NABJ. So I want to develop that. I think we're developing that. I also want NABJ to be a place where if people are having an issue at their job, at their station, and they feel like they are being marginalized in some way, that we can step in and be a voice for them and help advocate for them. Ultimately, that's what it's all about. And so that's what I hope NABJ is doing. I believe we are doing that. We won Chapter of the Year, Professional Chapter of the Year nationally.
I saw that.
For 2022 for our efforts to diversify media coverage in sports with the Chicago Bears, and our mentorship efforts and career days and professional development. So, and the money we've raised, over $20,000 for scholarships in this year alone. That's my goal coming in. I think in past years we've gotten away from that mission, but I think with me coming in, we're steering the ship back.
We talked to Brandon about his thoughts on the upcoming Chicago municipal election, specifically the Chicago mayoral situation, or as I like to call it, versus. We also asked him, where does he see himself over the next couple of years? And we get more closing thoughts, wrap it up with Brandon Pope.
So the reason why people may vote for Lori Lightfoot again is because, let me start with why they probably won't. Why they wouldn't vote for her again if they have issues with her attitude, the way she works with other aldermen, which I don't think that's something that most voters care about, honestly. Maybe they are upset with the lack of follow through with some projects and promises. There's some things she promised that she just hasn't delivered on. The latest is this homelessness issue that's going on right now. It's just she campaigned on them, and all of a sudden she's against them, and now she's trying to stop some things from coming forward. Invest Southwest, big initiative to invest more money in South and West Side developments. Nothing's completed yet. Nothing. So you could find things there, but on the flip side, reason why people might vote for her, they like her attitude. They like her fighter mentality. They like that she's a political outsider. They like that she is a person who comes off as an advocate for Chicagoans, and fights back against, Trump and Trumpism and Baileyism and things like that. If voters care about that, then there's that. But I think ultimately what you're going to look at in Lightfoot, what the problem is going to be is this city has a lot of problems. They're not all her fault.
At all.
The mayor gets blamed for a lot of things she can't control. Yeah. Violence in the city is one of those things. She can't really go out in the streets and stop somebody from shooting somebody.
Wait now. She might, because, she will go grab a box of Modelo and get some donuts and block the bike lane on you.
Well, that's the thing. You have these little controversies that pop up, too, that don't help her.
Didn't she dress up like a superhero during COVID? I think she might go out and fight crime.
She did have that. Yeah. I
remember.
That time she did that. Yeah. The way she had to deal with the pandemic
I think she did excellent doing it.
And many people think she did a good job.
I think she
doing
did a
that.
great job doing it.
So I think that's going to work to her advantage. But I think you look at the little controversies that pop up, people can find things they can dislike. And if you're a person who votes off of public safety, then you may want somebody different.
Yeah.
If you're a person who votes off of education, maybe you want something different because the elected school board thing hasn't really fully come through. And if you're a person who votes off of, I take public transportation every day and it's not reliable anymore.
Yeah.
And she said it's a car city and it's not a car city.
It's not.
then you may want somebody else. So I think those are the things that are working for her and against her.
I don't think it's bad when they're...
And she's an incumbent. Incumbents always have a favorability.
Might be tricky, though, this time. Because she's got a lot of... Look, I saw the commercial this morning for the first time, her campaign commercial.
Which one?
The one where the only thing was missing was Rahm's sweater.
Oh.
When Rahm Emanuel wore the purple sweater.
I don't think I saw that yet.
Oh, God. So
I think I saw a pizza one.
Let me go back for you.
Okay.
So when Rahm Emanuel was running in the runoff against Chuy Garcia, he had a commercial where it was a whole like, hey, I know I haven't really done the greatest job. And he had on his purple V-neck. And he's like, listen, it's going to be fine. Just give me a chance. I know I have been out here just wilding and doing crazy, but, come on, guys. And she kind of intimated in her commercial sort of the same thing. The only thing missing was the sweater where she's like, hey, look, has it been perfect? No.
Oh, I have seen that.
And I was like, oh, that's the death knell right there. No, of course it hasn't been perfect. And people who see that, they go, hell no, it hasn't been perfect, might be like, peace.
Or
done.
they look at it as, wow, she's being honest.
Or she's being...
authentic.
This is going to be wild.
Authenticity. Well, here's the thing. Here's what to look for. Chuy Garcia entering the race is a big factor here. He is the first person to enter this race that's legitimately, everyone's pretty much... It's going to go to a runoff if it's him versus her.
Yeah.
But you got to look also at who's got the fundraising.
Oh, and I know who does.
Well, Brandon Johnson's got some money.
You know who's got the most money, though?
Lori's got some money, too.
You know who got the most money, though?
Willie
Wilson.
Willie
Wilson is Chicago Pritzker. He's got the most money.
Now,
I don't think people...
That's interesting, yeah.
I don't think people take him seriously, and I really wish people would get past him and look at the fact that Chuy didn't win that runoff because he ran out of money. Amara Enya didn't win that race because she ran out of money. Vallis didn't win that race. He ran out of money. The people who could be mayor of Chicago, they all get to that part, and then the money is gone. I don't know Brandon Johnson at all. He's being endorsed by CTU, by
SEIU,
everybody at SEIU. At some point, though, if you don't have the bread, it's a wrap. When Willie Wilson endorsed Lori Lightfoot, her election changed because he had the money. He could help her. And I know without going all off into it, she's struggling to find people to help her. So I think this is, for me, as a political nerd, this is so fucking dope. I can't wait to see how this plays.
What's fascinating about Willie Wilson is when you look at the last mayoral race, he finished like third.
Yeah, he did.
Like
that's what I'm saying.
Like this, so something works for Willie Wilson with
free gas that don't hurt.
But here's the thing: I don't think that he is going to do well enough to become mayor of Chicago.
I could see
or
that.
get to a runoff, but he could be a factor that could hurt Brandon Johnson.
Kingmaker.
He could also be a kingmaker who gives a nod to a Chuy Garcia. Doesn't look like it's going to be Lightfoot. So, that's also an interesting factor there. I think the big thing, the SEIU and CTU endorsements are big because that gives him a large volunteer base, Brandon Johnson.
Yes.
I think what's also fascinating, you have these progressive candidates, Brandon Johnson, Cam Buckner, Chuy Garcia, and Lightfoot brands yourself a progressive. Paul Vallis is sitting there.
The most progressive of them all.
He's probably not. Well, he's not. He doesn't brand himself as a progressive.
No.
He backs the police.
Yeah.
He backs the police union.
Yeah.
He's got the police union support, and he's got more money than he did the last cycle. Vallis is interesting because he's going to hit public safety very hard, and crime is going to be a big issue in this election. So I think it's going to be fascinating. I really do think at the end of the day, it's going to be a 3-pronged, chewy, Lightfoot Brandon Johnson. But we also thought for the last election that Tony Preckwinkle was a shoo-in to become mayor. And then this woman named Lori Lightfoot came in and got a Sun-Times endorsement, and all of a sudden
changed everything.
So buckle your seatbelts, folks.
Before we bounce, and thank you for being on. This is
of course
big. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Where you're really good at your job.
Appreciate it, man.
You're really good at your no cap. You're good at your job.
Thank
Where
you.
do you think in a year or two we see Brandon Pope and hopefully, or not hopefully, but if Twitter hasn't vaporized by the time this airs, how do you see getting your message out to folks?
I mean, if Twitter's gone, man.
What if it's already gone while we're talking? Let me check.
Let's check to see if it still pops up.
Let's see.
I guess I'll have to start doing Instagram more often, or TikTok. Maybe I got to start dancing on TikTok. I don't know.
Man, listen, brother, I will trip you if I see you dancing on TikTok.
Look,
I will find you.
I got a lot of Gen Z coworkers who have been trying to get me to do more TikToks. And honestly, man, I hate what social media is becoming. Instagram and TikTok are now, everyone has to be a content creator or else you can't thrive on the app. Yeah. And it shouldn't be that way. I got a full-time job. Why would I sit around making videos? Like, come on. So I think we're in a crisis of social media right now. All these apps are terrible at this point. Twitter is on its last leg. Instagram's algorithm is just stupid. Facebook, what is Facebook even doing? Snapchat's for the kids.
It really is.
You know, like at this point, they got this thing called Be Real now. You ever hear that?
No.
Gen Z loves it.
Really?
And I might try it out. It's you take at certain times of the day, it prompts you to take a picture, and it uses your front camera and your back camera, and it's for you to be real. So it's supposed to like shed the fakeness of social media, and you show what you're really doing, what's really happening. No filters.
You don't want to see what I'm really doing.
It's cool though. If you're a person like I might start using it. I think the concept's interesting.
Yeah.
Like it's the idea of people put too much thought into creating an image on social media. So just be real.
Yeah, well, guess what?
But where can you find like in a year or two, man, I don't think too far ahead. I'm very much what's that common line? Never looking back or too far in front of me. The present is a gift and I just want to be. That is always my mantra, is the power of now. Where I'm going to be in a year or two, I don't plan on leaving Chicago, so y'all going to see me.
Good.
Y'all going to see me.
Thank you. Don't let them take you away from us.
Unless CNN got a bag for me.
I was going to say, if they got the bag, then yeah. Hey, man, thanks so much for being on Randomly Selected. Really, really, really appreciate this.
Thanks a lot, bro. Great being here. Thank you.
We want to thank Brandon Pope for his time and his wonderful words. And check out On the Block on CW26. Check your local listings for showtimes. On the next Randomly Selected, from Howard Brown Health, Shannon Parker. Have a great one. See you soon.